So despite the United States and Iran trading fire last week in the Strait of Hormuz, President Donald Trump insisted that the ceasefire is very much still intact. Watch.
After these strikes, is the ceasefire with Iran still on?
Yeah, it is. They trifled with us today. We blew them away. They trifled. I call that a trifle. I'll let you know when there's no ceasefire. You won't have to know. If there's no ceasefire, you're not going to have to know. You're just going to have to look at one big glow coming out of Iran.
Now, even as the president tries to downplay these strikes, the fact is that shots were fired. And this is far from the only instance of this. Russia and Ukraine are already accusing each other of violating a days-old ceasefire that Trump just announced on Friday. In Lebanon, at least 380 people have been killed since a ceasefire was announced and extended last month, according to the United Nations. In fact, Israel carried out a deadly wave of strikes in Lebanon just yesterday. And of course, in Gaza, at least 800 people, including women, children, and journalists, have been killed due to Israeli strikes since their ceasefire began last October. This, according to their health ministry. So how much weight does the word ceasefire even hold when that's clearly not what is happening on the ground? Joining us now, retired General Wesley Clark. He's a former NATO Supreme Allied Commander. General Clark, it's great to have you back on the show. Break down for us from a military perspective what actually constitutes a break in a ceasefire.
Well, that's a really interesting question because, you know, technically a ceasefire is nobody shoots. But there are political reasons for saying that's a ceasefire going on. The president has domestic political reasons for saying this with the War Powers Act. And maybe if you can maintain the fiction of a ceasefire, it facilitates third parties doing mediation and negotiation. So there may be some advantages to it. I can tell you the U.S. military is prepared because it doesn't believe that the ceasefire means it's over. But there's always a difference between diplomacy and what we in the military are thinking about and preparing for.
General, what do you think these repeated violations are doing to the international order, to humanitarian law?
I think the real problem we've got here, for the United States at least, is that we've started a war. We did fine with the air attacks. The Israelis took out the opposing leadership, but it's not strategically decisive. And so we're in a position where we've expended a lot of ordnance that we don't have an easy replenishment for. We've discovered that we can't get our ships very close to the Iranian coastline. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. It looks like that's going to be an expensive operation to try to open it. The nuclear materials haven't been dispatched. We don't have them, and we don't have any, physical plan to get them. Looks like that'd be a very tough military operation. And so there's a global fuel crisis emerging. The clock is ticking against us, and it's a sort of mutual pain inflicted between us and and Iran. And it looks like, according to the CIA, that Iran can withhold and stand on this for months. And I'm not sure we can.
General, this war has unleashed chaos in the Middle East, and it's obviously had a ripple effect around the world. But specifically, how has the war challenged and tested the security guarantees that America has made with our regional partners and allies in the Gulf?
Well, it has shown that the security guarantees really weren't very effective. Now, we didn't really coordinate and consult with our allies before the war began. I know there's an excuse for it. We were going to do it by surprise. We didn't want information to leak out, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, I think we should have found a way to consult with them. We didn't. They weren't quite prepared. And President Trump said he didn't expect retaliation against them. Well, most of us did expect retaliation against them if the shooting war started, and that's what happened. There's been some redeployment of assets. The Israelis put Iron Dome into the Emirates. The Ukrainians came in with some drone killing technology. The Saudis are defending themselves with 12,000 Pakistanis in Dammam. But none of that looks very good if you're talking about U.S. security guarantees. And so if you're a leadership in the Gulf states, you're asking yourself, what's coming next? Can you trust the United States? Will they consult with us the next time? What's their next step? And what's the value of the security guarantees that we in the Gulf states have paid hundreds of billions of dollars for?
General, Trump said on Friday that Russia and Ukraine had agreed to his request for a ceasefire from Saturday through Monday to mark Victory Day, which is Russia's celebration marking the defeat of Nazi Germany. I'm curious, do you think that this purported pause in firing benefits Russia more than it does Ukraine precisely because of that celebration?
Yes, I do think it benefits Russia more than it does Ukraine. And besides, the Russians really didn't support the ceasefire in terms of their other activities in Ukraine. Now, the truth is, right now, Ukraine has the momentum on the battlefield. And when you have the momentum, you need to press forward. And so Ukraine had been doing that. The ceasefire was an effort by Mr. Putin to block it while he does some reorganization of his forces, perhaps. And then, yes, there was a small celebration in Moscow. But Ukraine is moving forward with its drone attacks. It's setting up a no-movement zone, a kill zone going many kilometers in front of its frontline positions. It's a new form of warfare, and it's taking effect against the Russians.
General Clark, I wanted to ask you a question about the ceasefire and how perhaps it's being exploited, because there has been, certainly from the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, in a congressional testimony, a justification that this administration does not need to go and seek congressional authorization under the War Powers Resolution or the War Powers Act, because it's a ceasefire and it automatically resets the 60 days as a result of that ceasefire. That's his legal explanation. You're a military guy. Is that how you understand a ceasefire? Is that how you understand the War Powers Resolution to act, that in this ceasefire, the 60-day clock to get congressional authorization resets?
Well, that wouldn't have been the way it was taught to me and the way I read it at the time. But it is, the commanders look to lawyers, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the Judge Advocate General system, and so forth for their guidance. So really, this is a political question. And the question is, then, what's Congress going to do about it? If they think it falls outside the scope of the law, then Congress has action to take. They can cut off funding. This is what happened 70 some odd years ago in the case of the secret bombing in Laos. Congress cut off funding. Congress can do that, but Congress has to act and assert itself. So I think, you have to look for the military to do. We're going to follow the lawful orders of the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War. And that's going to be interpreted to us by the lawyers. And for larger questions like this, you have to go to the politics. So we don't want our military guys deeply involved in the politics. We want our congressmen, our senators to do the politics. Let us worry about what we should do militarily. We're in a very tough military position right now with Iran. We know we can restart the air campaign. We know we can take out energy infrastructure. We know that won't be decisive. We know the retaliation will come against our friends and allies in the Gulf. We know we can't stop that retaliation. And going against the energy infrastructure is not necessarily going to result in Iran saying, oh, okay, let's open the Strait of Hormuz. So we've got to be planning, what are we going to do to pry open the Strait of Hormuz? We sent the 3 destroyers in. They took fire. We returned fire. We're going to do that again and again and again until we eliminate the Iranian assets. And are we going to take any losses in doing it? So that's what the military guys are thinking about right now, and they're hoping to get the right guidance from what we call the suits.
General Wesley Clark, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.